Please state your name and what is your gender you identify with, and as well as the pronoun you prefer to use.
Yeah, my name is Amy Redinger, and I identify with she, her pronouns. But I also use they pronouns, or I'm okay with they pronouns. So.
When did you start questioning that you like the they pronoun?
I don't think I've ever really questioned it. It's somebody I dated a long time ago is transgender, and they went through a transition while we were in a relationship, so that just made me aware of kind of pronouns and identity and how that impacts my life. So it wasn't really a question as much as just an awareness, and I guess that was probably almost 20 years ago.
Will you please state your name and the gender you identify with?
My name's Sammy Young, and I am straight.
And the pronoun you prefer to use?
That don't matter.
Will you please state your name and your gender identity?
Andrew, Ariola, and gay.
What pronoun do you prefer?
I don't have a preference.
Will you please state your name and the gender you identify with?
My name is Molly Campbell, and I identify as female.
Okay. And what pronoun do you prefer?
She.
Right. Please state your name and the gender you identify with.
I am Dominic Young, and I go by he, him, although I do accept they, their, if it makes you comfortable, if you prefer to. It doesn't bother me any.
Okay. And when did you first accept yourself, and how did you feel when you first became the real you?
Well, I guess I would say, first of all, that I'm still becoming the real me, because I feel like gender and sexual identity and identity change over time. My identity has changed throughout my life, but I would say that once I was in in college is when I really started feeling like I was becoming myself and that's when I came out. So. I came out to my parents at 19, and then I felt like I was on the road to being myself.
What are some of the negative parts during your process, as well as the positives?
I've been very lucky. I don't think there's been a lot of negatives. Some might be that, employment. I had a boss once who said that it made her uncomfortable when I talked to my partner on the phone, and small things that maybe feeling like other people might not accept me, but I think one of the positives was that actually more people accepted me for who I am than I thought would, even my grandparents, for example. So that was a definite positive.
When did you first accept yourself?
Which time? I knew when I was probably 13 or 14, but came out when I was 19, went back in the closet when I was 20, and then came out again when I was 33. Well, I can tell you the reason why I went back in the closet. Well, one of them, I guess. There were many.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was 18, I went to Grand Valley State University. So this was many, many moons ago, 1998. So I went to Grand Valley State University, and I was planning on coming out of the closet at that time. And, so of course I had built a pretty decent friend network. None of them were LGBT, but at that time it didn't matter. They were just people that I knew. And I remember that I had, it's not an easy subject to preach, so I had planned to go and tell my closest friends the next day, and that night there was a news report, and Matthew Shepard was murdered, and the way that he was murdered was absolutely devastating to me. And so I obviously did not come out that day, so and stayed in the closet for another year and a half before I ended up leaving college, moving to Florida, and then was able to kind of finally be myself.
When did you start questioning yourself?
Oh, this goes all the way back to 2016. My friend and I would walk around the gym and I would make googly eyes at one of the taller basketball jocks. And at first we'd started it like a joke, saying, oh, he's cute and everything, laughing about it. But as weeks went on, for me, they became less jokes and more actual attraction. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. And it eventually turned into real love, and I crushed on him my entire high school life.
And then how does it feel when you first came out to finally be the real you?
I thought lifting an anchor off my shoulders would honestly, my dear, be an understatement. I remember it vividly, if you'd like the story.
Sure.
I got picked up from my grandparents by my real parents, and I joked about having a crush or something like that. And my mom says, "Oh, who's your crush?" And that's when my heart stopped, because it was this young boy. And I was like, and I whispered, "I'll explain to you later. It needs explaining," because that's what I thought at the time, ridiculous as it is. And when I got home, I was shaking, sweat, nervous, as you could imagine, because when I was in the closet, I'd read stories about kids getting slashed in the throat, in their sleeve, and kicked out, the worst, most unimaginable horrors. And so my mom went into the shower, and I texted her. I said, "Mom, I am gay or bi, and I'm in love with this young man." But she knows him and his mom, but I don't want to release any names for the safety. And when she got out, I sat at a desk I have in my room and shook, and then she seen it and then wrote back, "Oh honey, I will love you no matter what." And the weight that lifted right off the shoulders words can never describe. As much as I do love to write, words will never describe that absolute mountain just lifted off.
And then do you have any negative experiences during your process?
I did not with family, no. Or my parents, grandparents, they all congratulated me and said, "Well, finally, honey, good job." But I lost a few friends, or I would like to think I lost them, because after I came out, it's the back talk, and they never spoke to me. But if they ever had to interact with me because of a group project, they'd be, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" But there was just, the friendship magic wasn't there, and you could tell they were maybe uncomfortable. I don't know, because they were the stereotypical rednecks, you might call them, because preach the Bible, how that pertains. So I'm the devil's sin in their eyes.
And what made you a supporter of the LGBTQ community?
My son Dominic. I mean, I was never against the LGBT community or nothing, but when my son came out, I became really on the forefront for him.
What made you a supporter of the LGBTQ plus community?
I think just over the years, learning and studying and researching about that, and I also do have friends and family members.
And then you do have friends and family part of the community, correct?
Yes, I do.
So,
And students too.
Okay.
Really important to support the students that have those, interests and their lifestyle. Yeah.
who was your first main supporter?
My grandfather. He, I feel like he was a person who just loved me for who I was, no matter what, and he was an awesome person.
Do you see yourself as a supporter to other people?
I do. I think that I try to be supportive of all people, all kinds of people, students, especially in my work at Bay College. I try to be really supportive of students wherever they're at.
And then who is your first main supporter?
There is no one person? My family.
Okay.
So I've had issues with my family at 2 degrees. My brother was Mormon when I came out the first time. He is not anymore.
Now changing topics, how do you feel about marriage equality in all 50 states?
Well, so that's a great question. I think it's wonderful and it's great for everybody to have the opportunity to be married. I am married to my partner. We've been together for 17 years. But at the same time, for me, marriage is still very much a heterosexual institution that is not necessarily something I care as much about as other people might. So it's complicated, I guess. If it were a Facebook status, that's what I would say. It's complicated.
All right. How do you feel about marriage equality in all 50 states?
I think it's a good thing. I hope that the Supreme Court ruling, most recent ruling actually stays, but it was a 5-4 decision, so we'll see how that works out.
And then how do you feel about marriage equality in all 50 states?
Oh, I'm definitely 100% for it. I wrote a paper on it for research writing, that and adoption. So yeah, I'm definitely for it. Statistically, it's there, I mean, like the research showed that it was definitely a good thing. Yeah.
And then how do you feel about marriage equality in all 50 states?
I think everybody has the right, that deserves the right to be happy and married.
And then how do you feel about marriage equality in all 50 states?
Well, without a question, with the straights get it, so why can't we? Why wouldn't we have the rights to be as miserable as them? To pull the old Facebook cliche. They get it, why don't we get it? We have the right to be as miserable as they are in their daily lives, and we're all humans, so.
And then do you believe with same-sex marriage legalized, do you believe that it reduces the rate of suicide attempts?
Probably not a whole lot, but I would say I think it would be for some people that really want that marriage, that union, that they can freely go get it and stuff. I think there's probably somebody out there that it has.
With that in mind, do you believe that same-sex marriage legalized may possibly reduced rate of attempted suicides in the community?
I think that was a validation. I think that having the LGBT community be able to marry was a validation, and I think that could have brought some people from the brink. But as far as a extreme change, I don't think so.
And then with that in mind, do you feel with same-sex marriage legalized, do you believe it reduces the rate of attempted suicides in the community?
I haven't seen data to support that. I'm very much a data-driven person. I love the research that comes out of places like the Trevor Project and other national organizations focusing on LGBT health and wellness. I don't know that it does, because it's still, marriage is great, but it also matters how people are treated in their daily lives.
And do you believe that same-sex marriage legalized can reduce the rate of suicides?
Without a doubt, my dear, without a doubt. I know I am greatly in love with my partner, a man, and we're quite early in the relationship still, but I've known him for 5 years, and for 3 years I have quietly crushed on him. So, but I know even as early as we are, to be able to marry him would be one of the greatest days of my life. So I try to take that perspective put it into the perspective of somebody who may be in the closet with the reject of the family, the black sheep. And I think it would evidently, you check the tabloids, check the statistics, I would see suicide rates, maybe not all the way, unfortunately, if families involved, but it would substantially drop if we had marriage equality everywhere.
And then with that in mind, do you believe that with same-sex legalized, do you think it reduced the rate of suicides and attempted suicides in the community?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know any data on that.
Do you believe it though?
I think that overall having better rights and protections and recognition and support, for anyone in the LGBTQ, IA, etc. Community, obviously would help, hopefully reduce all those kinds of tragedies.
And then how do you feel about all the violence that happens in the U.S. towards the community?
It's one of my, it's a big concern, I think, both violence and self-harm, and the way that people's lives are less safe or secure because of their sexual or gender identity.
And then have you ever had violence experiences from others, such as mental or physical abuse?
I haven't experienced those things because of my identity, but I certainly have known people who have and have seen that, and in fact have witnessed, have been, well, I guess what I'll say is somebody that I knew who is a gay man was murdered, and so I know people who have experienced extreme violence. So.
And then can you talk about the damages the violence causes, such as how do they feel safe anywhere, or do they anything like that?
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that violence does, is that it makes everyone feel unsafe. So, Drew, the person that I knew who was murdered in Madison, his death makes other gay men feel unsafe, right? And it impacts lots of people, even if they weren't directly related to that.
Okay. And then how do you feel about all the violence that happens in the United States towards the community?
Very, very sad. Yes, I know, especially against transgender individuals. The rates are extremely high, unfortunately. And I do tell my students again about the Matthew Shepard Foundation and the Trevor Project and things like that, because that's a real tragedy for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then how do you feel about all the violence that happens in the U.S. towards the community?
It's sad. I've been very, very fortunate to not have to deal with it personally. And like I said, it has had an effect on me. I was not obviously Matthew Shepard or anywhere near him, but his story really, had a huge impact on my life. And so I would definitely say that it can be devastating to let yourself see yourself in the eyes of the victim.
And how do you feel about all the violence that happens in the U.S. towards the community?
It just breaks my heart and makes me angry. And when Dominic came out, I didn't care, but that was my biggest fear, was the hate and the crimes.
And then how do you feel about all the violence that happens in the U.S.?
It's all my fears as a child come to life, to be honest with you. You wake up every day with a smile and try to be as positive as you can, but then you'll go, yeah, you got the nightly news, and they only force feed you what they want you to think, but you can't hide from the fact of groups on social media, groups around the town that you might visit with, have a cup of coffee, and you have no choice but to face the reality that you're gonna get the dirty looks, you're gonna get the gun pulled at you, dare I say that. You're gonna get the knives, you're gonna get the threats, you're gonna get...
Probably. And then what are some of your wishes / hopes for the LGBTQ plus community in the future?
My biggest wish and my biggest hope is for safety and wellness, right? Those are two of the big things, that people feel safe and well, and that they can live lives that look the way they want them to live. I think everybody has that right. Everybody should have that right and ability, and that's really what I want for people.
And what are your hopes and wishes for the LGBTQ plus community in the future?
I think it would be wonderful someday for it to just be no different than someone has brown hair or blue eyes, or, you know, and just you can openly talk about your relationships and who you're with, and yeah, that kind of stuff would be nice. Yeah.
The American dream, the reason everybody comes here. And a part of that was the equality, the acceptance, everything. Welcome to America, come as you stay, come as you will. So to have us so divided against us for one little situation, it's just same-sex attraction. If you don't want it in your life or whatever, I don't get that. Or if you're accepting of it, but you're straight, we ain't trying to hurt you.